All right, it's my pleasure and honor here to have on the Full Court Press one of my good friends, and he doesn't need any introduction, but for the sake of his ego and the sake of mine, we're going to introduce him anyways. He is the holder of several, at one point, 13 state football records. 13. In fact, if you're doing your math, that's every state football record as a quarterback. He also is still in the top 10 categories in several major pitching records in high school, including ERA in a season in 2002, career ERA from 2001 to 2003, and still in the top 10 in strikeouts in a career, strikeouts in a season, and as well as hits allowed in 2003. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor, it is my privilege and pleasure to introduce you one of Cache Valley's great and one of the best players in the last 20 years to ever escape Cache Valley. It's Ryan Zimmerman. Ryan, thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me.
How was that introduction?
I didn't even know half of those things. So
you did. You just forgot.
Yeah, that might be it too.
Pull that mic up to your mouth for me. Thank you. I know you're shy of the mic. You don't like to talk. Ryan, let's start here. Where are you at? What are you doing these days?
So I'm a professor at Weber State University.
In what?
I teach in our health, physical education, recreation department.
Are you liking it?
Oh, I'm living the dream. It's amazing for me, my family. The flexibility is great. You know, I get to hang out with the kiddo a lot, golf, fly fish as much as I possibly can, and get to teach and do a little bit of research. So it's awesome.
What did you ever see yourself like? I know. And we're going to get to the high school aspect of a lot of things in long ways, but some of these things that are in your life now kind of actually relate from high school. One of those things, did you ever see yourself as a professor years ago?
No.
So what got there?
A man named Dr. John Crass up at Utah State was a big influence. I mean, he coached college basketball for many, many years before he pursued his PhD. And he was one of my professors, obviously, and took him to lunch one day, and this was when I was coaching up at Utah State, coaching football, and just like, I don't know if I want to do this. I love it. I love the kids, but, why did you get out of coaching? And, one of the things, what it came down to was he was like, I have one regret in life, and that's that I got my PhD when I was 40. I wish I would have done it when I was 30. And 2 years prior to that, I always joked, when somebody asks you, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be Dr. Crass. And sure enough, I teach a lot of the same classes that he teaches. He just is up here at Utah State. And, I went in that direction because of his mentorship, his guidance. He pushed me to go that way. And same with Dale Mildenberger. He was the athletic trainer
at Utah State.
Up at Utah State. He was another person that, I sat down with, and he could tell I was a little burned out and a little frustrated with coaching. Didn't help that we were losing a lot at the time. As soon as I left, everything turned around.
It takes off.
Bowl games, and Gary just took that place to a new level. So maybe the key was to get me out of there. But yeah, I never would have thought that I'd end up where I am. But again, a few people can point you in the right direction and push you, and that's exactly what happened.
You were in Boston for a little bit, aka Titletown, weren't you?
We lived in Connecticut.
Okay,
but we were close to. We were probably less than 2 hours from Boston. I just was in Boston a lot.
How did you like it?
Loved it. I mean, that's why a lot of people thought we lived in Boston, because if you ever looked at our social media, we were always in Boston doing, whether it's going to baseball games or just going to eat. I mean, it's. And then we were close to New York City too, but we spent most of our time in Boston, which was fun.
You say you're married to your high school sweetheart, Lacey.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could call her that. I graduated, and then we started dating.
I was gonna say, I don't know this as long as we've known each other for 20 years now. I don't know this story, how you two met and what that trip was like. Give us the story.
Oh, I'll do the short version. Well, I really liked her, and she did not like me. She made
what?
I asked her to a dance, and we went to the dance, and I liked her even more. Over the next week after that dance, she pretty much told me to leave her alone. Like, literally, this is when instant messaging.
Time out. This isn't true.
So this is when instant messaging just started on
MSN.
like AOL.
Oh yeah, okay.
And I don't know what it's really called, but we were. The whole computer love thing, just typing back and forth, and she just straight up, it wasn't computer love, I was not her type. She literally wrote, "Please leave me alone, I'm not your type." So it took me a good 6 or 7 more months to trick her into, going
Okay,
out
I'm
with
sorry.
me
We're
again.
digging into this though. This isn't making sense to me. How did she ever give you a reason why, besides the whole "you're not my type"? I mean, I'm not a lot of girls' types either, but I mean,
I was a cocky, arrogant prick.
the first two, yes. The last one had its moments, sure.
No, that she, I mean, you do, back then, I probably came across a little bit different than who I really was. I didn't go out of my way. I wasn't the extreme extrovert that I am now, where now I really try to go out of my way to talk to people and whether it's my neighbors or just people at the grocery store and saying hi and being, I wasn't like that then, and I really focused on myself. I wasn't, sports kind of took over my life. I was really good in school, really good in sports, and that's what I focused on. I didn't really focus on relationships as much as I do now. So, that was the same thing with a lot of her friends. Our friends hung out, and she just didn't like me. I don't know what it was, and it took a while. But
I know,
I won.
That's the most important part. I know it's kind of blurry in these days. How long have you been together? How long have you been married?
Oh, geez. So we're coming up on 9 years in June.
Marriage?
Mm-hmm.
I still remember turning your reception. Are you serious? 9 years?
Yeah, 9 years. It's been, and then, I mean, we've been dating since, 2003. So we've been dating for a long time. And the good thing is, though, she went up to Utah State. She was an Aggiette up there. She danced while I was playing ball back east. I was gone 6-7 months out of the year. So she still got to experience her life, the college lifestyle, and I got to experience, my life too. So it's not like we missed out on anything. We still got to live our lives and have those experiences separately, enjoying our friends, going to parties, that kind of stuff. So that's what was great about our situation is we had a lot of longevity, but we were doing a long distance relationship, and it made us so much better.
See, that's incredible because usually those long distance relationships tear you apart. I mean, I don't mean to be Dr. Phil here, but I just, from experience, they're tough to deal with. It's pretty amazing. And you have a little one now, is that right?
Yeah, Winston Vo is his name.
How'd you come up with Winston Vo? What was the story there?
Oh, one of Lacey's friends gave us a list of like 40 different names,
Holy
and
cow.
Vo was always going to be his middle name just because we liked it. Vaux. There's
okay.
nothing behind it.
Okay.
It's just we liked it.
Yeah.
And his name was actually gonna be Walter. When he came out, he didn't look like a Walter. He seriously looked like an old man, like Benjamin Button almost. And a few days went by, and Lacey's sister was like, yeah, he doesn't look like a Walter. He just looks like an old man. He kind of looks like a Winston. And we both just looked at each other and was like, yep, that's his name. It's Winston Vo.
I'm pretty sure in 15 years he's going to be grateful that you changed it to Winston as well.
Yeah.
How old is he?
He will be turning 2 in June 11th.
And how is the life of being a father?
It's the best. I mean, there's nothing like it. And we didn't want kids. That's what's a little interesting is we were both kind of on the same page. Forever we both wanted kids, and then we got to a point where we were like, no, I don't think so. Maybe we'll just have a dog farm and just adopt cats and dogs and sheep. I don't know. But things happen, and now it's like, oh my gosh, what would we do without him? He's the coolest, funnest, craziest little thing. I mean, and you should see him. He's so athletic, and I'm trying not to be biased here because he's my kid, but man, he has no fear.
Do you and Lacey ever look back and just kind of laugh at how Lacey was like, I'm not dating you, and then all of a sudden here you are, married with a kid, dog, and a home, and the whole family life?
Yeah, she probably regrets it all the time. No, I mean we're fortunate. I mean, she got. I mean, I guess I got through to her. It took some time, but even through our dating for so many years, we have our off and ons. Our good times, our bad times. Which is the same thing right now. Marriage is tough, especially with a kid. But man, we figure it out, and we figure it out better than most, which is great.
You live in Salt Lake, is that right?
Yeah.
So you're commuting to Ogden for work?
Yep. Yeah. So I Salt Lake's a middle ground for both of us. Lacey works in American Fork for a tech company called Domo. So we both, Salt Lake was kind of that middle. I mean, her driving around the peak of the mountain in Lehigh is horrible traffic.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I've been there, done that.
So she's down there, and I'm up in Ogden. So Salt Lake's perfect middle ground for us.
What do you look back on and say, I know you talk about yourself being the cocky, arrogant prick, but what have you carried with you from your high school days to now professor/dad Ryan?
Just success. I'm competitive in everything that I do.
That's for dang sure.
And that transfers over to everything in life. I want to be the best at my job. I'm not saying that I want to be better than my colleagues, but I sure want to be somebody that they look to as someone to rely on when I speak. They listen. The information that I provide needs to be evidence-based. So I'm still competitive in a way to where I'm still reading a ton, especially, I mean, when it comes to research articles and scholarly research and going that route. But even with my students because I teach, a lot of the classes I teach involve sports and psychology, and that was one of the things that I was best at, was being not cocky, but really knowing that I am one of the best. And it's that self-confidence that's hard to get to for a lot of people. And when you're teaching future teachers, they're not confident in themselves, and it's probably one of those things that I try to transfer and help these kids and adults. I shouldn't say kids, because many of my students are older than me, that are going into the teaching field, that, you have to find that confidence. And if you don't have confidence, those kids are going to ruin your life.
Being a professor, this whole COVID-19 is probably taking a whole new name of teaching, and probably, if not anything more, shown how important you as professors and teachers are, college and high school and elementary level, K through 12 and all that. What have you learned from this whole situation?
That teaching face-to-face is so much better.
What are the difficulties of teaching online compared to face-to-face? I know there's probably numerous ones.
It's the relationships. I mean, I do what I do because I like to build relationships. I loved coaching because I built so many great relationships with the kids, with the student athletes. It's the same thing with my students now. I really enjoy the relationships. So I hold a lot of Zoom meetings where there might be a lot of professors who are teaching online and they're not holding these meetings, but I want to see my students' faces. I want to see their reactions. I want to have that nonverbal communication and just be able to enjoy that aspect, where when you teach online, you're giving students assignments, you're not really teaching. You're just providing them with content for them to read on their own. Some people work really well with that, but a lot of my students, they're future teachers. So how do you teach a future teacher to teach somebody but not be there in person? It's kind of tough, but I mean, we're getting through it. We're figuring it out. There's a lot of online programs, teacher ed programs that are strictly online. I don't like them, but at the same time, we're dealing with it, and we're going to make the best of the situation. And hopefully this can all clear up over this year, and things can maybe slow down and be a little bit more normal moving forward.
A conversation we had just before we got on the air, we were talking about just how great high school life can be, because there's 4 years where it's you and a Ferrari just going down a road with all your friends for 4 straight years. This year, a lot of seniors had their seasons cut off, the graduations canceled, memories shattered because they had all these things to look forward to. What do you tell kids, seniors especially, who are listening to the show, listening to you right now, about having those memories taken away from them because of something that's out of their control?
There are much better memories moving forward. I mean, I loved high school. I loved the experiences that I had, but they are nothing compared to the experiences that you're going to go through later on in life. I mean, let's just talk about college. A lot of these kids, may not be playing sports in college. They may be playing sports in college. But I can tell you, you're going to meet and find some of the best friends you'll ever meet later on in life. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm still best friends with my best friend from high school. He was my best man. I mean, heck, I'm going to golf with him in about an hour. And my group of friends too. I mean, I'm still friends with my high school buddies, but the most meaningful experiences are going to happen later on in life. I mean, Dustin and I, Dustin Smith, he coaches at Mount Crest. He coaches baseball. Him and I have had so many more and better experiences after high school. I mean, I remember the night when he told me that he was pregnant, that Megan was pregnant with Lily. I mean, I was bawling, absolutely bawling. I was so excited for him, and I was so excited that I was going to be an uncle, you know what I mean? And I mean, those experiences are so much better than the games that we played in high school and graduation and that sort of thing. It's devastating. Them not getting this experience is tough, but there's a lot better experiences moving forward, whether it's in athletics, whether it's family, whether it's you meet your wife, whatever. There's just so many more experiences to come, and they'll understand that soon.
What about the fear of losing contact with your friends? I mean, you and I stay in contact every now and then. You were just saying that you still talk to your best friend. You're going golfing with him today. You still talk to Dustin. I think that's also a worrying concern as well.
Yeah, it happens. I mean, no matter how close you are with somebody. I mean, Dustin and I, we don't talk all the time. But we have an understanding. We both know that we're always going to be best friends. But we don't speak. We don't talk as much as we used to when I lived on the East Coast. I feel like I saw him and his family more, which is crazy.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it's because you just get confined in this your own little world, and having a child now is totally different. Now we don't see each other as much because my life's a lot more hectic. Let alone all my friends have kids too, and they're all doing their thing. It's not easy to make time for everyone else in person, and I mean, you and I talk more than most of any of my friends, and that's mainly just because we do it
once every 4 or 5 months. Yeah, really.
And I love it. I love the fact that there are some people in this world that still want to talk to me, but there are a lot of people in this world that I don't need to talk to. And I still know that they love me, and they feel the same way. They know that I'm there for them if ever needed.
Who's your closest friend that didn't go to Mountain Crest that played athletics?
Oh, jeez. Hootie.
Which one was he?
Dusty Roach.
Oh, yes.
I mean, we met at Southern Utah.
Okay.
He was one of my really, really good friends. He lives in Tremont now, Garland.
Oh, okay.
But he So he works for Lincoln Financial, has his own firm in Tremont now, let alone he helps with his farm. So I still keep in contact with him pretty well, and he's probably one of my favorite people on this planet because you probably would remember him if you...
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And he's just such a crazy kid. So fun. And I don't see him as much either, but he's one of my favorite people on this planet.
The relationships between, now there's 5 high schools in the Valley, I think it's 5, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 high schools in the Valley now.
I don't know, I lost track.
Yeah, like Green Canyon, Skyview. I got to actually say it myself just to make sure. And Bear River as well. So it's 6 in a region, 5 in the Valley. The relationships are a little bit more connected, because I used to go to school with this person for 3 years and then went to Ridgeline for 1 year. And so I guess the friendships are more connected all over the Valley. Was that the case back in the day? Or is it more disconnected? We aren't friends. We aren't buddies. If I see you, I'll say hi, but that's about it.
The relationships were there, for sure.
Just not noticeable?
No, they were noticeable.
Really?
Look at kids from Logan. Tyson Harris was at Logan. You got the Pawnees. I was over there mixing kava all the time with the Pawnees. Mm-hmm. And then you go look at Skyview, Todd Barr. Todd Barr and I are still close friends to this day. Heck, I texted him last night. And then after high school, hung out a little bit with Nate Harris, but that was mainly through Todd.
Where is Nate now?
I think he's still in the Valley.
I got to track that guy
Yeah, I
down.
need to as well. He was a good dude, but we're still Facebook friends.
That counts.
Yeah, so that I guess. But being friends with Todd, and then Todd and I played baseball together at Slick. So we actually had some, and we were roommates, which was crazy. So we were friends before then, though. He came on. I forget what trip it was, but he was with myself and my dad, and Todd was a good friend even in high school. And when we played against him, we weren't friends. There were times when he hit me really hard, and he would help me up, but he wouldn't be like, "Are you okay?" So it's interesting because those relationships, they became better even later on. I still keep in contact with the Pawnees too. I don't see them hardly ever, mainly because I need to get my mixing game back on point. I haven't mixed kava in a long time.
Used to be a tradition, a routine for you every weekend, man.
Yeah, don't tell the administration of Mountain Crest this, but there were times when we were sloughing class mixing kava in the locker room.
Well, I'm not supposed to tell you this, but I think they already knew.
They probably did.
Ryan, you ready to head down memory lane?
Let's do it.
Ryan Zimmerman, one of the best athletes in the last 20 years to come out of Cache Valley, joins us here on the Full Court Press. Ryan, the mystique of Ryan Zimmerman went full-blown during the 2000 football season. You guys lose to Logan 22-13 to end your regular season in 2000. And I'm gonna push.
I forgot about that.
I'm gonna push your memory. And Ryan Boehm gave you guys fits year in and year out. Him alone gave you guys fits. Then you go into the state tournament. Were you guys a third seed in that? This is your sophomore year, by the way.
Oh yeah, we played. Let me think about this. That would have been. Did we play Lone Peak that first round, or was it Cypress?
It was Cypress.
Cypress, and they were like 10-0.
Yep.
Well, they were 10 and done after that game. But they were yeah. I believe we were a third seed because we were playing a 1 seed. So
you go to Cypress and you beat them, and your defense comes up big. 16-6 is the final score. Your defense was tremendous in a cold game too, if I remember right.
Oh,
in fact,
freezing.
that actually we're going to go back to Cypress in about 2 years.
Yeah, 2 years later was colder.
It was freezing. And then you go to Lone Peak for the quarterfinal game, and I still remember listening to 103.9 FM and Bob Apoon, and my dad and I are sitting next to a radio, and we hadn't ate our dinner. We left our dinner on the counter because we just couldn't leave this game. And out of all in a 16-13 win, it's John Schroeder for a field goal to win it, to send you guys to the semifinal. What do you remember about this game?
Well, I can't remember who their safety was, and I think they were brothers. I think there were 2 safeties, but maybe that was, I get that game mixed up with Cypress. But the coolest thing about that game was we had a play because that was Coach Cox Dan Cox was our head coach. Oh, what was the play name? A Starburst. It was called Starburst, and I was a sophomore. I wasn't great at that point. I could throw the ball a little bit, but we had the best O-line in the state and the best running back, let alone Jake. He was a fullback tight end. And so we had just monsters on the line. And so we ran the ball like crazy all year long because Adrian Stewart was, one of the best running backs in the state. And but we have to get some yards so that we can actually win this game, right? So I can't remember how much time was left. It couldn't have been more than like 20 seconds. And he calls Starburst. And I've been all week long when we ran Starburst, if the outside linebacker blitzed, I was just to immediately pop it to Adrian. Like just a real quick, like he was my.
I forgot about him.
He was my, hot route, but we needed like 40 yards, right? So of course they blitz, and I hit my hot route, which we need 40 yards. That's probably not the smartest thing to do. Well, he runs. He caught the ball and broke a tackle and ran down within the 5-yard line, and we ended up kicking a field goal to win. But it's crazy because I don't remember a lot about all my high school experiences. I had a few too many concussions, but I remember small little things like Starburst. It just doesn't make sense.
In the semifinal in the snowy stadium of Romney at the time, you faced Logan again. and Ryan Boehm has a heyday. And behind the quarterback, who was the quarterback at the time? Was it
It was Lowe.
Jared Lowe?
Jared Lowe. He was damn good too.
This game was, I think, frustrating for a lot of Mustang fans for the fact that you guys were inside the red zone, I think, 5 times and came away with only 6 points.
Yeah. I threw a lot of incomplete passes.
But do you ever go back and say, damn, Cox, why didn't you freaking just kick the field goal? We had a kid who just kicked the game winner against Lone Peak for the win, and now we won't kick a field goal from 22 out.
I mean, we were in 2 feet of snow, putting that ball down on. I mean, it was cold, it was snowy. Schroeder he couldn't plant his plant foot to be able to kick that ball. I mean, I was struggling holding on to the ball. It was just, and we were put in a lot of situations where we needed to throw, which isn't great when you have a sophomore quarterback in freezing cold weather with a ton of snow. But that goes along with Logan, what the positions that they put us in. We have the best running back in the state, but when you're in 3rd and long, every single, possession, it's tough, putting a lot of pressure on me, and, it just wasn't the ideal situation, but that goes along with the game plan for Logan.
Was Ryan Ryan Boehm, the best player you ever saw on the other side of the ball?
Yeah.
I know you've seen a lot of, damn good athletes, but
I would say him, and then Kyle Brady was another one.
From Twilla.
But we only got to play a half
because of
him.
The tower collapse.
So Boehm's in a whole new world because, I played against him so many times, and he was just like my nemesis. Like, he was a tough sucker, He had, not only was he great, was he athletic, but he was just so tough.
We're about to talk about the mirror option of Logan from 2000 to 2001. This 2000 Logan defense was pretty dang good. In fact, they actually beat up Highland 14-0 in the snow at the University of Utah to win the state championship just 1 week later after they beat you guys. How good was that defense?
You put a goose egg up against Highland. That's a defense right there. It's the same thing with us. What did we score? 6 points that game?
Yep.
The week before? Whether it's bad weather or not, we were used to scoring points. So they're great.
In fact, the lowest score was you guys were held to was 6 by Logan. They held you to 13 the week 2 weeks before in that final regular season game. But you were averaging over 25 points a game throughout the season. That was the 3rd highest in the 4A class at the point in time. The next year, you guys come back, but with a different guy at the head of the head ball coach with the curly hair and the fast-paced offense. When he came to you, and I remember I was a sophomore, so I was a water boy at this time, and he says, "Ryan, I want to implement a no-huddle offense where we just go and we don't stop." Your reaction was?
Sweet. I get to throw the ball more? Let's do it.
And he was all about that. It was incredible, but instead in game 1, instead of seeing the show of Ryan Zimmerman continue, we see the debut of Carl Bladd, who scored 6 touchdowns, one of them on a kickoff return to start the second half as you throttle West 49-22, but Carl Bladd had a day.
It was West?
It was West to open up the season.
That's right. I forgot about the West. Yeah, Bladd, that dude was unreal. He was so fast. He ran like a gazelle. He just you couldn't stop the kid. He had some great experiences even as a sophomore returning kicks for us. But nothing like what happened. And I think in the newspaper, it's funny that I remember this stuff. My wife's going to be like, "What? How do you remember this? You don't remember yesterday." But I think in the newspaper it said, "Bladd, you're a Mustang."
Yeah, that was the title on the front page of the sports page. Yep.
Yeah, and he sure was. That was the beginning of a great year. And then back to Erickson, like Bladd, Elis, and myself. There were so many people on that team, right? But him implementing that new offense was really the kicker. He was a personnel guy. He realized the type of people we had, and he adjusted the offense to those people versus, okay, we're just going to stick to this offense no matter what. He took the talent that we had, he looked at every single individual, and he game plan based on that. That makes a good coach. That's how a lot of great teams are successful is by adapting to the personnel that you have. And that's something that a lot of high school coaches didn't do back then. Not saying that it was so long ago, but a lot of people are stuck in their ways. They run a power offense. They run the wing T. They're an option team, whatever. A lot of coaches stick to their, what they like to run, and he wasn't like that. He adapted, which was really, really cool.
I still remember sitting in film with you guys, my first time sitting in film with you guys, and Erickson has Sega 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, and all as he does, I still remember this clear as day, I don't know if you do, but he says, all right, give me options on Sega 91 if you see cover 2. Now if you see cover 1. And you are just bam, 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 bam. Erickson looks at you with a smile and says, we aren't going to lose.
Yeah.
We aren't going to lose. He was so confident with you as quarterback. He just saw you and him have the same vision the whole entire time. And it was incredible to watch that unfold for 2 years with you two.
Yeah, we got each other. He was a film guru. I turned into a film guru, mainly because of him. I mean, you got to understand, too, my pops at the time, he was the D coordinator.
Yes, he was.
So, I mean, I grew up around coaching in general anyway, and I saw his game plans, and I saw the amount of time that he put in watching film and developing these spreadsheets and developing these, different situations for his defense. And I grew up around that stuff. And then when Erickson came along, he forced me into it. I mean, I watched so much film with that guy. I was there before school watching film. During lunch, I was watching film. I mean, and we were I helped develop the names and the game of our
absolutely.
Offense, the no huddle, like everything. I was right there with him. He's like, oh, what do you think we should call this? What do you think we should call our 60s series? I'm like, well, Elvis Presley, because Elvis was popular in the 60s. Like, I was a part of that whole process. So he was developing an offense while I was helping develop it. That's why I understood it so well, was because I was right there in the beginning.
You used a Fremont for the second year in a row at home, 27-19, and then you throttled Davis, and we go win-loss for first 5 weeks of the season. It's annoying, including a loss to Skyline at home, who was ranked number 23rd in the country at the time. It was the first time I've ever seen you take the pounding you took against. I mean, they absolutely, and I love you, Ryan, lit you up on almost every single play.
Well, they're a big reason why I don't remember much. No, that team was unreal, and I forget the head coach. He was there for forever.
Roger DePay.
DePay, yeah, that's right.
How do I know that?
But he developed quality teams. Even in those years where they probably didn't have the talent, they still won.
They still won.
Yep. And that's just what great coaches do. So props to them. But man, and
I remember that place was standing room only. Like, that was standing only everywhere. You could not find a place to sit. You were standing on the track around the field, and by about midway through the third, late into the early fourth, that place was near empty. With the result 38-15. You then go to Box Elder and destroy Box Elder on their homecoming night. In fact, Box Elder was favored to win this game. Final score 35-10. Bad news, you lose Nick Gillison on a torn ACL after going up for a jump ball and coming down with him.
Yeah, that was a bad throw.
Was it a bad throw?
Well, I left him high and dry. I mean, you can. It's easy for me to put blame on the throw. He still caught it because that's what he did. He didn't know how to lose. He didn't know how to drop anything. Probably one of the most athletic people I've ever been around in my life. But yeah, that hurt. That hurt a lot. I mean, and I was devastated, especially because if I would have thrown that ball, 3 feet lower, he's not jumping up so high and coming down so awkwardly. But, it is what it is, and that stuff happens.
Again, you lose to Ryan Boehm and the Logan Grizzlies for the third straight time on a homecoming night, 29-16 at home, and Ryan Boehm had a day. In fact, he accounted for 300 yards of total offense. He would surpass that in the state semifinal game at Romney Stadium later on in the year. I remember it was the only time I ever saw you cry. Were so pissed.
Boehm just kept beating me up. The Pawnee was there beating me up.
Yeah.
And then you had, what was his name? He was a receiver and played...
Chase Cutler?
Chase Cutler. He was a beast, too. I'm missing so many people that were on that squad. But, you can only get beat up so much until you just drop to your knees and say, I'm done, and just cry.
Well, it ended up turning your season around. You then go on to win 7 straight, including a 56-20 blow at Snow Canyon in St. George, a win over Roy. And by the way, do you remember trailing Roy at Roy 24-21?
I do not.
They had scored a touchdown, and everybody just loses their freaking mind on the sideline. And then I remember only 2 people grabbed everybody and kind of like cuddled them up and told them to just relax. Art and you. And you two are staying in the middle. And, I mean, we're talking special teams, defense, and offense. Whoever can get there, get there. And it's you and Art just saying, relax. And then you told everybody, we're going to win this game. We're not going to lose to Roy.
Yeah, and
almost in a
that's
disgusted way.
Why I don't remember is because I was like, come on.
It's Roy.
Like, and that was Roy at the time. I'm not saying it because it was Roy. But at the time, because I'd been in Roy High School many times over the past 3 years with student teachers, and I, but we weren't going to lose to Roy.
You then beat Skyview 46-20. In fact, it was during an emotional week because Joey Gilsdorf, or I guess, his brother had just passed away during that week. Yeah. The funeral was the day of that game, and in honor, you said we were going to go out there and beat Skyview, and you did 46-20. You had a heck of a night with Carl Blatt as well.
Yeah, that was a tough...
That was a cold game, too, actually. If I remember, that was a freezing cold game.
Yeah, that was a cold game. But that whole week, the things that happened with the Gilsdorf family that week was obviously hanging over everybody's head. It's that kid, Fuzzy, right?
He bled Mountain Crest football, too.
Yeah, and that's literally how it started. He had the staph infection was on his forehead from his football helmet. Which is the cause of his death, Again, football is just a game, but when you use little things like that to help motivate you, special things can happen. We happen to beat up on Skyview and some of my friends over in Smithfield, which is just fine.
That's okay with us.
It helped the week out, so...
You then clinched the Region, at the time, the Region 4 championship with a 56-33 blowout on senior night of Bonneville in the return of Nick Gillison. Actually, I guess it wasn't return. Nick Gillison came back for the... No, was it? I think Nick was back for the Bonneville game.
I can't remember.
I can't remember either. It's been a while. But Nick Gillison had a great night that night. And by the way, do you know who the most underrated receiver that season was? Who never got credit?
I know who it is.
Who
Richardson.
Is it? Yes, thank you. Thank you.
That kid knew how to find holes like it was his job. He was just like playing against any zone coverage. He was the man I threw the ball to the most. And even man coverage, he still did a decent job, but he wasn't as agile and quick as Blad and Elison and even Tony, Webb. But he just. He knew how to find holes. I bet you a lot of those completions were to him, and people have no idea. Richardson.
He did. In fact, at the end of the regular season, Ryan, he led the team in catches, and it wasn't even close. And he led the team in completions for first downs as well.
Sounds about right.
He was your bailout guy.
Doyley,
that's right. In the first round, in an absolute embarrassment of a showdown, Murray loses to you guys 56-7. It was 42-0 at halftime.
Yeah.
And Art Erickson came in and said, well, I don't know what to tell you, but we're doing good.
Yep. That we were really explosive. You go back and watch that game, and it was crazy. It was crazy how everything was working.
And then, of course, you beat Timpview at home 50-27. We'll see Timpview again in just a little bit, actually, in the following season. And then, of course, it's what do they call it? The Rumble at Romney, Part 2. Mountain Crest and Logan, Ryan Bowen versus Ryan Zimmerman, the showdown again. And this one was packed. It was a beautiful, beautiful... It was a total opposite picture of 2000. It was a beautiful day. And it turned out on the scoreboard like it should, as 37-34 your final. What do you remember about this game?
Not much, actually. That's probably the reason we won. I got a concussion. So
which one? Do you remember do you remember the play or whatever?
Yeah, no, I don't remember the play. I watched film the next day and I didn't remember a single play.
No way.
It was like watching yourself on TV and going, "Dang, you're all right." But I think it happened in the second half. And
You had a concussion this game?
yeah,
You played like there was nothing wrong.
well, I mean, I had like 4 concussions that year. This was the time when you didn't come out for a concussion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I played a lot better after a concussion, which was surprising because I think just you don't think. It's almost like you're out there playing backyard football, and this is sad to say, but it's true. Like I played really well after a lot of my concussions, which is scary.
37-34 on a 41-yard field goal from Cody Smith. Nate Jackson had himself a day. Who was the better? I'm going to do this to you. Who's the better back, Adrian or Nate Jackson?
Don't do that to me.
Who is it?
Yeah, they both were amazing. I can't. You got to understand. You got to understand a couple things. So Adrian had probably one of the best O-line in history of high school football. And Nate Jackson had a pretty dang good O-line too.
Well, Nate was more physical too.
Here's what you got to understand too: is we ran a spread offense my senior year, right? My junior year, sorry. No huddle spread offense. So a lot of his runs, were against boxes that weren't full, where Adrian was running against boxes that were packed. 8 men in the box. It's a different type of running. I would say Nate Jackson is a more all-around running back, meaning he can catch, he can run, he can block. Adrian could run and could block, but he wasn't one of those backs that you're going to just throw out on a route, right? But then again, I never had that opportunity to do that with Adrian. If Adrian would have been a year younger, who knows what? Maybe Adrian would have been a better passing back. I don't know. It was 2 different types of offenses, so I can't say one's better than the other. They were both mean. They were both not nice people when it came to on the field. Amazing off the field, but they were mean people.
You win the state championship with a win over Box Elder in a game that was closer than what we thought it would be at 24-22. Do you remember the first 15 seconds of that game?
Blad? I throw a touchdown. I think I hit Doyle across the middle, and then Blad deep in the on a fade route for a touchdown. Is that what happened?
And then do you remember
we get the ball
pooch
back
kick
immediately?
Because for some reason their Box Elder team sprinted up the field instead of covering the ball. We cover the ball. First play right after that, you find right. Blad again. And then you found Blad for a third time going the opposite direction from north to south, and in a diving catch into the end zone, Blad comes down with it.
Catch.
Pretty much put the game away. Box Elder made a run out of it, but again, final score. It was your first and only state championship of your high school career. That still just mind boggles me.
Yeah, I remember. I do remember. I didn't get a concussion that game. It was great. So I remembered everything about it.
You stayed pretty clean, if I remember right.
Yeah.
The play people forget is on 3rd and short when we had to have it to close out the game. You roll out and you throw to Nick, and he makes a spectacular one-handed grab for a first down.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you got out of IV. I mean, Elison, that's
IV. I forgot that's what we called him after the.
Yeah, but that kid was just an all-around. You could put him at any position, and he'd be the best at it. Except quarterback, he couldn't throw the ball.
He'd tell you different. Before we get to your senior year, which was just incredible, heartbreaking about every way, we're going to tell you why here in just a moment. Your baseball year, that sophomore year, you lead the state in ERA and in strikeouts.
My junior year.
Your junior year. Sorry, your junior year. Excuse me. I apologize. Your junior year, we're 1 game away from clinching the region title championship, and we have to go to your nemesis Bonneville to do it. And this is going to become a theme, and I hate to put him on a poster like this, but Nick Gillison ends up being credited with the loss, even though he didn't deserve it. We lose 3-2. But then I remember Coach Hansen telling me this one time. This is well after this had all happened. Coach Hansen, I asked him, when was the best opportunity you thought you had to win a state championship and you didn't? And we're going to get to your senior year in just a bit. But he says in 2002, when we had 2 games at home and we won. We beat Mountain View in the snow, thanks to you. And then we went to Spanish Fork, and Jory Jensen throws a beauty of a game.
Yeah, he pitched the whole. Yeah,
and we win 4-2. Nick Yeltsin hits a 2-run homer over left center field to pretty much clinch the game for us, and you get the final put out. So we go into BYU 2-0, and we have to face Olympus with you on the mound. And Dustin leads off with a triple, scores on a pass ball. We're up 1-0. We didn't score until like the 6th inning, and Olympus lit you up.
Yeah. I try to forgot about. Actually, let's just say I forgot about the game.
Sounds good to me.
That's the one thing that I did really well is I have great when it comes down to it. My amnesia, it's that's what I think made me so successful. Is I forget the bad, but I remember the good.
The next night we have to play Springville. And it's another TIFE team. In fact, you have a good buddy on that team.
Zach.
That's right.
Yeah.
In fact, if you remember this, I think we're up 1, and Jory forces a ground ball. Kid at second. You boot the ball. Kid turns and goes to home. Your throw is late and off. And then Zach Erickson comes up and hits a 415-foot shot over left field. And it was a runaway for Springville, and they end our season.
Yeah, I remember that. Well, actually, I don't. I forgot about that, too. But, yeah, Zach and I we were roommates in college, actually, for the first year. But he never let me forget about that. and he didn't let me forget that he picked me off. He had a pick 6 the very next year of my senior year.
In
first
fact,
game.
In fact,
you were probably going to get to that.
Yep. In fact, that's where we open up. Zach Erickson. In fact, you guys see each other back-to-back years, back-to-back games in the season opener.
Yeah.
You beat Springville 24-22. That's one of them. Zach picks you off. Here's the crazy part, and I think some people forget about this if you're a Mountain Crest fan. We were supposed to have won that game. That ball game was over, but they give Springville an extra play. And Zach catches like a 40-yard bomb and gets him, I think, within close to field goal range, but just outside of it. They run one more play for some stupid reason. They get another play and nearly beat us. We escaped 24-22. You beat Fremont at Fremont 32-22. And in fact, you got a concussion this game.
Yeah. So their tight end, he was their best receiver, best everything. He was just so good for Fremont. I can't remember his name.
Was it Bo Hadley?
Bo, I think was... No.
Was he the quarterback? I can't remember who the freaking quarterback.
There was Jake Buse, who was a stud. I think it was Jake Buse. Bo Hadley. That's not Box Elder, is it?
Oh, it might be Box Elder.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Box Elder. Okay.
But this kid was just lighting us up. And so my dad was frustrated because he was dominating us. So he threw me in at safety. And I hadn't played any defense. And he said, "You're one-on-one with him. That's your only job." And so that guy comes across the middle, and I'm gonna eat his knee up. So I put my helmet straight into his knee, and I got a concussion. I came out that exact same play, but that kid also came out, and he didn't play the rest of the game. He might have came back in, but he didn't do anything because his kneecap was broken.
He didn't come back in because they pulled him out, and then Davey Swinson recognized it. You come off the field, and it's 4th and goal for them, I think. And because I was right there when you hit him, and I'm just like, oh, yeah. And then you come off the field, and you're just wobbly.
I'm dazed.
And Erickson goes, hey, on this next possession, I want to go Sega 96. I want you to look for the hot route here. And you're like, Coach, concussion. And he's like, let's go Sega 97. And he's just going off about plays, and you're absolutely nowhere to be found.
Yeah, sounds about right.
And in the end, 32-22. And then, of course, the Tooele game. They're the number 1 team in 3A. We're the number 1 team in 4A. We're tied at 14.5, and this game is ugly at half. Yeah. We go out to start, and the tower, because of the wind, blows over, and 2 people on top of that tower. One person dies, is resuscitated back to life. They get a helicopter. We're sitting in the gym waiting to get back in because we think we're going to still play. Yeah. And I remember your dad's speech, and this is not good, but the ref is sitting there, and he's kind of somber, and he goes, hey, look. All right, the tower fell over. They took his bleep out. All right, he's on a helicopter going to who knows where. We're going to go play football, and we're going to beat these guys. And it just gives us pump up. And so we go back out there, and then all of a sudden, like, administration from Tooele, administration from Mountain Crest got it, and I'm like, we're not going to play.
Yeah. Well, what you got to understand, too, is, him giving that speech and getting us excited was one thing, but then reality hit. And, he was a big part of us not continuing.
Yeah.
My dad. Because what it came down like we didn't know any information.
Yeah,
when
we at the time we didn't know. Not even our Erickson knew.
There, and the reality hit everyone, and it was kind of like we all just came to a conclusion that this is just a game, and some people's lives are not only at risk, but one might be gone. And so my dad was and myself and Kyle Brady, like the head coach of the other team, I don't even know who it was. I mean, we're all just sitting there talking and not just trying to like talk about like this game really doesn't mean anything. We're tied. Like I'm like totally supportive of not continuing. Of course I want to play. But again, we don't need to continue this game. And, Kyle was awesome about it, the head coach. I mean, they knew that person very well. And so we just came to the conclusion that, hey, shake hands. You win, I win. We all lost kind of. I mean, but.
Do you remember the handshake line? I was actually behind Whittier, and someone comes by and says, hey, we just tied the number 1 team in 4A. Whittier about lost it. Yeah. And if I remember right, Brandon Smith grabs Whittier and pulls him back because Whittier was ready.
Well, you got to understand who Whittier is, too.
He's a competitive kid, and I love it.
Yeah. And
but, to hear
still
that.
To this day, he's going golfing with me, too, in an hour. So, I mean, I'm going to beat him, but it's golf. They know they can't beat me. No. But he still hasn't changed. He's still a competitive person, and he'll never change, which is why he was such a good football player, because he was mean and competitive.
Yeah, he was a 2.0 version. Well, I guess he was a younger version, and I mean this in the nicest way, a little bit less productive version of Carson Jessup in a way. Carson Jessup was another animal on another planet in another universe when it came to production and defense. You lose to Skyline 20-17, what was an absolute barn burner. Yeah. You are down 3, and it's 4th and 14 on your own 7-yard line, I think. You complete a pass for 20-something yards, and then do you remember the pass to Blau with 42 seconds left, down the middle of the seams, wide open, and it hits him in the head?
Yeah. If it hits you in the helmet, it was a good pass. So I'll blame him. No.
Do you remember getting turned upside down on that play?
I mean, you got to understand too. There's a lot more to think about than me just hitting him in the helmet. I had to release that ball quick. And I remember that I can't remember what the play was called, but it was a route where he's not going to be looking that soon. He's not my hot route, but he's my guy. Like that's the guy I go to, right? In clutch situations, him and Elison were my guys. And I threw the ball a little soon, and it was too soon. It wasn't at the normal time where you should be looking for the ball. So it's not. I can't really blame him. But I did hit him in the helmet. You did.
And I remember Dave Kress losing his mind. I also remember in this game you break in Ingeman's, who was at the time at BYU, Ingeman's passing record. And the PA announcer at Skyline was kind enough, when things had settled down, that he actually announced that he had broken his record, and you got a very nice applause. You probably don't remember that, but I thought it was one of the coolest things when a packed stadium, and there was national writers there. USA Today was there. There was a couple of big time publications there to watch you play, and then of course, I remember Cody missing the field goal. The next day in film, Erickson's just rewinding the kick over and over and over again, just over, and he goes, "How do you miss a kick from that far out?" Cody goes, "I wasn't ready." Ryan, was he ready? He said he was ready. Cody's like, "No, I wasn't ready." Who said I was ready? And there's just this awkward silence for 10, 15 seconds, and Erickson's just rewinding it over and over again. And your dad about lost his mind.
Yeah, well, Erickson does that stuff. He'll kick you a little bit when you're down.
Yeah.
Depending on the situation and depending on the person. But, I mean, he's also the first person to pat you on the back when you do something amazing. But he's one of the most competitive people I've ever met in my life, too. He would play on the scout team without a helmet.
Yeah.
And sometimes he'd throw a helmet on, and I remember he hit one, I can't remember who he laid out. But, again, this is the head football coach.
I think I remember.
Laying somebody out on their back, and he's standing over the top of them, and he hits his head and goes, "Buckeye." Like, because, the Buckeyes, when they do something well, they get a Buckeye on their helmet. And I just remember just dying laughing. And I'm just like, this guy is a nut job. But, he was amazing, great. At the same time, he did things that wouldn't be very welcoming to a lot of people nowadays. But, I mean, he just knew how to win. And, when you miss a field goal, sorry, you're the kicker. We're going to watch it over and over and over again. Deal with it. And Cody became better because of it. He was a great kicker. And things like that, just mentally, it toughened him up. So,
in fact, Cody didn't miss a kick, I believe, until the Bonneville game, the final regular season game of the year.
Yeah.
You lose to Boxeller 37-34 on a QB sneak up the middle with 50 seconds left. What people don't realize, I didn't know this until the next day in film, he had dropped the ball at the 1 yard line and started celebrating. And nobody really realized until we watched film, like, oh, well, he dropped the ball at the 1 yard line. Well, what are you going to do now?
Whether he dropped it or not.
Another homecoming loss for you, though, and it just heartbreak.
No, that was terrible because that quarterback, him and I didn't get along at all. I did not like him, like, at all. And like in high school, like, I didn't like Bohm, of course. Yeah. And now we're older, and you graduate even in college a year after high school. Like Bohm and I have no issues. He's a good dude. I've talked to him. I don't think it was this year, but maybe it was last year at Ridgeline. And I'm like, hey, Bohm. And we sat down and talked for a few minutes. It's not like we're best friends, but we both have you can see the respect, and it's the same thing with that kid from Box Elder. I think I almost got in a fight with him at a basketball game later on that year because, they beat us.
Yeah, handedly too.
And I'm at a basketball game, and they made sure to let me know that they beat us, and I wasn't very happy about it. And
I remember the crowd chanting overrated at the football game on the other, and it was so loud, and it was just one of like, what? And at this point, we had not won a game in September.
Yeah.
Then comes Logan the following week at Logan. Riley Olson breaks his leg the week before against, I think, Bonneville. And so now it's Ben Macy at quarterback for Logan.
Oh, yeah.
And he actually goes out there and plays pretty darn well. You still beat Logan for the first time in a regular season game, 28-14, but Ben Macy went out there and competed.
He did. I remember that. And what's funny is I coached Ben.
Oh, you did?
At Utah State.
Shut up.
No.
Really? No,
because, he went on his mission.
Yep.
And so it was kind of funny. I mean, he's younger than me, obviously, but, it's crazy. And he took some time off as well. But I remember when he ended up, and I think he lives in Salt Lake. I actually was going to go play basketball with him and a bunch of his friends a couple months ago. But good dude. Ben was a stud.
Blowout wins over Roy, Skyview, and Snow Canyon in games that you scored over 40-plus points in every single one of them. Only once did you allow 21 points in any of those blowouts. The Roy game was interesting because the lights went out on a Friday night, on a Thursday night. So we played on a Friday morning or Friday midday, and Nick Gilson came back. Nick Gilson had missed the homecoming game.
That's right.
Because he had hurt his leg. And so he was back for the Roy game, and you win in convincing fashion. Same thing against Skyview and Snow Canyon for senior night. And then, of course, at Bonneville with a chance to play for the region championship, a win secures you a second place because it'd be by coin flip for a tie. If Bonneville wins, they win it outright. You guys are up by 10 in the third. You lose by 10, 41-31 in this game.
I don't remember that.
You had two, I don't know, of course, you had the 2 picks in the end zone.
Yeah.
But then, of course, so which means we're a third seed and we're on the road again. So, of course, you're back at Cypress.
Oh, my. Okay, so this game, it was negative 800 degrees.
Oh, my. And I was a ball boy.
So cold.
And I wanted a hand warmer, and Coach wouldn't give me one. So I'm holding the footballs, and I'm like, I can't feel my dang fingers.
Yep. So here's that game in the short version. It was so cold, I did not want to be on the field, and I audibled probably 70% of all the plays that were called. I would just look at Blad and tap my helmet, which is Blad.
I didn't know this.
Go deep. So that game, I threw for almost 500 yards. I think I was like 496 yards.
Yep.
And then rushing wise, I can't remember how many rushing yards I had, but I swear I was at over 100.
Blado had 162 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns, excuse me.
And then what about Elison?
Elison had, it doesn't have his complete, it just has his carries. And he had, 9 carries for 87 yards. And
does it have my carries?
3 touchdowns, and it just says you had 1 TD.
I swear I had like 120 yards rushing. That was the best game I've ever played in my entire life, and I felt like it was a video game. But again, I just wanted to be like, literally, Erickson would be calling the plays. So we'd get the ball, it'd be first down us. I'd be next to the heater, and he would be like yelling at me. I'm like, just call the play, I'll run out there. So the whole team's on the field, and he's calling plays, and I run out there before the clock,
before
the delay of game. And then we'd score, and I'd go straight back to the heater. And we just bicked our head because Stromberg, Jason,
had cancer. That's right, and you were on the news for it.
Yeah, and so not only was it cold, but I didn't have any hair on my head. I was literally bald. And I just wanted to get off the field. I hated being on the field. And it was a video game. 47-26 was
your final score. Blad did have a 46-yard touchdown catch to open the scoring. Ilson had scoring runs of 6 and 2 and 6 again. Watterson also had a 27-yard touchdown catch as well. Blad had a 58-yard reception from you, again, 47-26. And then you go to Timpview. Same round, different venue, in a game that was cold. And this one makes me sick a lot of days. 28-20, 4 minutes left in the ball in our hands. And in fact, do you remember your opening pass being picked off but then called back?
Yeah. And then the next play was touchdown to Elison.
Yep.
Yeah, I threw a pick. They called PI. Then the next play, I did the same thing that I did with Blad. He was one-on-one with a corner that I remember watching a ton of film on, going, he cannot guard Elison one-on-one. So I just tapped my head, just said, hey, run a fade, and I just threw it. I mean,
he was open by 3 yards. It wasn't even close.
And
do you remember being down 20-3 at half?
Yeah.
We were getting just blasted, and then Colorado, with Brendan Smith, goes in there and just gives a speech of his lifetime and just lays it all on the line and says, who's with me? And everyone kind of walks out with him, and all of a sudden we score, 25 unanswered points and are up 28-20 with 4 minutes left in the ball, and then all hell just broke loose. They scored 22 points in 4 minutes.
Yeah, that was.
And then they had Brian Soy. They had the Reynolds brothers. Yeah. They had a that team was ranked 9th in the West, and they had a defensive line that was
Affleck was an elite.
In
11.
fact, he was going to go to Arizona State, I believe, at the time. He did,
and then had some things. Transferred to BYU, had some things, and then I think he went to Utah State for a semester or something like that. I
hate to do this to Whittier because I love the guy, and I know he hates my guts, but I still love the guy. But I still remember it kind of sparked it when Bardsley, it was a stick route. Well, I think someone was standing next to Whittier and said, hey, watch for the stick route. Well, the guy runs a stick, but then just turns up, and Whittier is just left on ice skates. And he goes 69 yards for a touchdown, and it just kind of blew that whole thing open. It's not on Whittier, but it just kind of sparked everything.
Well, I played defense almost that whole game.
That's right. And Jason Leatham had 3 picks, and you had 1.
I had a pick too. And I can say this honestly, there was more to it. Like, hey, Whittier, watch the stick, but he didn't have help over the top, and that goes to the other 2 guys behind him, which is myself and I think Leatham might have been the other safety, you can't blame Whittier.
Yeah,
for
no,
that.
You
got to blame
I'm not
the
trying
guy
to. Yeah,
because I didn't understand defensive concepts. Well, I understood defensive concepts. I just didn't know the plays. So there was times where I was totally out of place, and where I should have been in a specific spot, and I wasn't because I didn't know the dang plays. I was just out there because I was told to go out there. You know what I mean? And it's kind of our last lifeline is, okay, put all your best players on the field and on offense and defense, and that's what we did. We had a lot of guys playing both ways that game.
The crazy thing is that Timpview, who was a high-scoring offense, then went to play at the U against Lone Peak and lost 6-0.
Yeah.
Lone Peak shut them out.
Did Bountiful win that year?
Yep, they did.
They had Box and Binks.
And they won it the following year, too. They beat Logan in the state championship the following year as well. They won back-to-back.
That's right.
I know you got to get golfing with Whittier here in a little bit, and so I don't want to keep you too long, but I do want to go through your season baseball because it was special, Ryan. It was really, really, really special. I remember sitting with a sophomore at the time, and we were sitting inside of a gym playing basketball, and we looked at each other, going through our and we're not even thinking basketball. We're thinking baseball, and it's only freaking December.
Yeah.
And we looked at each other, and we're like, dude, we got this guy back, this guy back, this guy back, this guy back. Oh, yeah, and Carl Blatt's back because He had torn his knee, and he came back for senior year. And I said, dude, if there's any year we're going to win it, and we kind of said it in unison at each other, it's this year.
Yeah.
You started off just sizzling. In fact, wins over Olympus 6-1, East 10-2. You beat El Dorado, California in that Little Caesar St. George Invitational.
That's right, and they were
you
a
pitched
good Vegas team.
6-1. They were ranked 5th in the state in Nevada, and you pitched a gem. 6-1 is the final score. You put on a show in front of scouts.
Yeah, I dominated that game. I remember that. That kind of put me on the map too when it
Sure
came to
did.
baseball.
Sure
that's
did.
when because recruiting in baseball is a lot different than football.
Mm-hmm.
You almost have to show more interest in baseball for a team to go after you, right? And that's when I was getting a ton of D1 looks and people contacting me, and and every single one of them, whether it was Arizona State or Cal State Fullerton or Stanford, like people like that, I was playing football. Like, sorry, I'm going to be playing football, and I had committed to the University of Utah.
Sure have.
And then when Coach Matt got fired, and this was before the baseball season happened, I committed to Southern Utah, Gary. So I still had all these D1 teams contacting me, but I just kept saying, hey, if you can give me a football scholarship, I'll think about it. But no D1 team would offer me a football and a baseball scholarship, because it's different too. Baseball, they can do percentages in D1, where football, you get a scholarship, it's your full ride, where baseball, they can give you 50%, right? So I was with all these D1 teams, Southern Utah, Gary, he pulled me down there and he recruited the hell out of me, him and Aaron Roderick, and they were going to allow me to play both, so I was going, but that game against El Dorado put me on the D1 map when it came to baseball, because I was not getting any looks for D1 in baseball until then.
You no-hit Skyview 1-0. We sweep through the region season, including an absolute chaotic series versus Bonneville, where we beat Bonneville. In fact, you remember we were supposed to play Bonneville at our place. It rained, but their field was good to go in Bonneville. So that day, like about, I think an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours before the game, Coach comes in and says, hey, we're going to go to Bonneville and play them there. We're going to at least get one game in so we know who the region champion is. If we win for the region championship, they can do the seeding. Yeah. If we don't win, then it comes down to that next day. So we go there, and I think Blatt hits a leadoff home run. You end up saving the game. You end up closing the game out that day to give us the perfect region, I guess, close to perfect region season. And it was the first time after that Coach had talked about the option or the attempt to go perfect. That never happened. It would be great. So we play Bonneville the next day. Yeah. And I still remember it being wet, and I can't remember who you beat three times. Did you beat them 3 times?
Yeah.
And the third time,
on purpose,
they're losing it. Okay, so here's the thing. As I asked Steve Hansen about this too, off the record, I said, did he beat him 3 times or on purpose? And he goes like, with Ryan, you never know.
Yeah, exactly.
So I called Luke that day. I'm like, because Luke was catching my Luke. Did he? He goes, oh, yeah, I did. Are you kidding me?
So Steve had no idea. He's never been that coach. Because, you'll get fired. You're done. And deep down, he probably loved it. He maybe. Because there were times when he didn't like me so much. But, you got to think, my ERA was below 1. I was like a 0.64, 0.67 my senior year. I was 10-0.
And then do you remember what the next batter did?
No.
He hit a home run off of you to tie the game. And then in the bottom of the 7th, you hit a double to win it for us.
That's right.
I
do remember. Oh, that's not the... we'll get to that. Because there was a kid that hit a home run, I think, off me the next week.
Yep.
From Spanish.
So we beat Bonneville in game 1. That gives us the region championship. Casey Jorgensen throws a gem of a shutout to win 3-0. You clinch a perfect regular season to be 22-0. Then comes Bountiful. Daniel Blodorn at our house in front of the world, it seemed like.
Yeah.
And it was a whole world versus Mountain Crest, and we lose 4-1.
Yeah, but Blodorn. So him and I ended up playing together at Slick too.
I didn't know this.
Yeah, we became friends.
Oh,
he's an absolute. This is probably why we got along so well. But he's a weirdo. Like, and you know me, I'm a crazy weirdo. But he's a good dude, and he was a good pitcher, and he just dominated us. Yeah. Dominated us that game, and it was no fun. So we were perfect until the first round. Now we're in the losers bracket.
We were 27th in the country, and then that all went away. Then you play Spanish Fork the next day. What do you know? You're playing Spanish Fork again at our place, and you are on the mound.
Yep.
Just like that, we're down 4-0 going into the 5th inning. We score 9 runs in the next 2 innings and win 9-4.
Yep. So that was what I was going to get into. Is there's this kid. I don't know if he was a freshman or if he was a sophomore. He was the center fielder. Oh my gosh, what's his name? We went to Russia together. I can't believe. And then he went to the University of Utah, and I pitched against him the next year. But his brother, I think it was his brother, was a sophomore or a freshman, and he hit a monster bomb off me, just left field, and that was probably what put him up 4-0.
Yep.
Just massive though, like this young kid, and he comes to home plate, and he doesn't touch home plate with his foot. He slaps it with his hand. I was pissed, and I think I'd be in the next guy. But we ended up winning that game, and I was really frustrated. I actually didn't even go shake their hands. It was one of the worst things that I'd ever done in my career was, think that I was above the game, and I didn't even go out there and shake their hands. Like, I was so angry that I did not care. And so that kind of shows who I kind of was at that point in my life. I wasn't the nicest person in the world. And I was so mad that I did not show sportsmanship.
So with that, we go to the state tournament at BYU. We throttle East 9-1 behind your arm again. And then in a barn burner, beat Bonneville 7-6 for the 4th time. In fact, if you remember this, 2 outs, 2 strikes. No, not 2 strikes. I think there was a strike, but Tommy Holland bunts.
Tommy gun.
And with a suicide squeeze, Fligger comes home, scores barely. If the catcher catches the ball, he tags him out by like a mile. Drops the ball, though, and we end up winning that game. And then we lose. In fact, we get shut out by Cypress, 3-0. And I remember the students after the game yelling at you. Some of their students just screaming at you. And I remember you were, and look, as much as you called yourself a punk, you handled that about as well as I could ever imagine a player doing. I was right in front of you. And I didn't say anything. I just kind of watched you, and you kind of just looked at him and just shook your head. And their coach and his head coach grabbed you and said, "Hey, hell of an athlete, all this." And you were like, well, "Whatever. I just want to get out of here." And you handled it extremely, extremely well.
Well, I put a beat down on them in the fall in football, so I didn't feel too bad, I guess. No, that senior season was unreal, and for it to end how it ended, Elison got both those losses. We lost 2 games, and they were,
and he doesn't deserve them.
We didn't, no, not at all. We had errors in the field. We didn't. 3-0, we lose 3-0. So it is what it is. But it was the best. That was one of the best times of baseball that I've ever been a part of, and it was so fun. I've had some really cool experiences. And that season was an overall probably one of the best times of my baseball career. Pitching at Fenway was probably the number one.
I got to get to that in just a little bit. I got to ask about that. So you leave and you go to Southern Utah with Gary Anderson as your head coach. What was that experience like of being quarterback underneath Anderson?
Oh, it was weird and crazy. I was a kid, and I thought I wasn't. I thought I was the most amazing person on the field. And I think that's why Gary liked me, is he understood that my confidence could get us through some things. And I didn't start until like game 4 or 5. I think my first start was against McNeese State.
Yep.
But
they were ranked.
I threw 4 touchdown passes in the first half. I think all 4 of them were to Chucky too, Charles Henderson. But I knew that, like Erickson, other coaches that I had, he was like, "Look, you're not bigger than this game. You're not bigger than these players." Because he's the most loving guy in the world.
Yeah.
And he humbled me and made sure I understood that this was not all about me. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you actually care. You care about every single person on this team, and it isn't about me." And he made sure that I understood the love, and that this was no longer the Zimmerman show. You know what I mean? And this was the first week of camp. And it's probably one of the things that has kept me, like, him and I have one of the best relationships, because we started out in 2003. I came back and I coached for him in 2009 to 2011 when he was hired on. Even in between there, when I was playing when I was playing baseball back east. Every year I'd come home and go visit him at the University of Utah. Like, him and I became super close. And when he left Southern Utah, I mean, I was going with him, whether he liked it or not. And he wasn't allowed to talk to me. He knew, like, when he left, he knew the rules, and it really was hard for me because he knew he couldn't talk to me. And I tried, and he just was like, I can't talk to you. Like, leave it alone. And so I went out of my way, and I said that I was leaving Southern Utah, and they wouldn't let me. They held me captive because they knew I was going to go to the University of Utah. And Gary didn't know. You know, it wasn't. I didn't know if I had a scholarship. You know, so once that happened, I took him to not really court, but I appealed and went in front of a board, and I lost my case. So I couldn't
twice, right?
So I couldn't transfer to the U. So I went to Slick. I was like, I'm gonna go play baseball at Slick for a year, and then I'll transfer to the U to follow Gary again. I mean, that's how. And then when I was at Slick, I obviously talked to Gary, and I had a scholarship lined up there, and I was gonna be able to play baseball as well. I was gonna be able to do both. But then I got recruited by a bunch of other schools and ended up signing with Arizona State instead.
And then all of a sudden, before you can go to Arizona State, then comes the MLB draft, and here that comes. What was that experience like?
It was awesome. I mean, I knew I was going to get drafted, and then all of a sudden I blew my arm out. I had Tommy John surgery.
That's right.
And I mean, I was predicted second, third round. I ended up getting drafted. I think it was in the 12th. Mm-hmm. But that was after my surgery, and Tampa stuck with me and went out east, played ball with them for a few years, and played rookie ball, short season single A, and I mean, it was such a good time.
Pitching at Fenway Park.
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
It's called the Futures of Fenway game. We were playing against their single A, the Boston, they were the Lowell Spinners. And it was a doubleheader, so it was us and then their double A team, I think, or maybe it was their triple A, maybe it was Pawtucket. But it was back-to-back minor league games at Fenway Park. It was packed. There were the place holds like 38,000 people, and there were over 30,000 people there. And Alex Cobb, who's one of my really good friends, actually, he's still pitching. He pitches for the Orioles, but he pitched the first 6 innings. I came in the 7th. When I got on the mound, I run out from right field, right, and sure enough, it was when Sweet Caroline came on. So I'm on the mound, the whole stadium singing Sweet Caroline.
Oh, come on, Ryan.
I stopped warming up. My catcher, Mike, what was his last name? But he looked at me. He's like, Zim, let's go. And I just put my finger up like, hold on. They're singing Sweet Caroline. I'm taking this moment in. So I got 30,000 fans who were booing me when I ran out, first off, singing Sweet Caroline. And I just took in the moment, pitched that inning. I actually got the bases loaded with 1 out and ended up throwing a inside fastball back to me, broke. I didn't break his bat, but I was probably pretty close. Right back to me, home to first, got out of the inning. Then the next inning, I think I got it 2 outs, and then I got taken out of the game. Our closer came in. We ended up losing in the 9th, 2-1. So I didn't get the loss, but I didn't hold us to a shutout. So.
Ryan, this has been fun.
Yeah.
This has been an hour and a half of just absolute pure fun. Excuse me. Can I get sentimental for just a quick moment? I'm going to let you go. I swear to life. But I remember in 6th grade, I went to a Mountain Crest football game. And me and my friend, was just I'd never been to a Mountain Crest game in my life. And my dad said I'd go out and play football behind the fence or whatever. And so I said, okay. Well, and there was a bunch of big kids playing. And I went out there and was running routes. I didn't touch the ball or anything at the point in time. And I fell to the ground one time, and I got a hand lifted up. Guy had long hair that nearly covered his eyes, earrings on his ears, plaid shorts, and a Mountain Crest pullover. And he said, my name's Ryan. And I said, my name's Ajay. And he said, well, Ajay, you're on my team. You then played quarterback and threw me the next 2 passes. From 6th to 12th grade, I could probably count on one hand how many friends I actually made. And you were the best one I ever made. We've already talked about it nauseam probably in person and off the record, but I've never told you thank you, or at least not enough. And I want to tell you thank you now because it means the world to me. Because back then, dude, I don't know where I would have been or how much trouble I would have been in or if I would have made it. And even as a star quarterback, the best player in the state, you always took me under your wing and make sure I was all right. And you always took care of me. And from the bottom of my heart, I want to make it public. Thank you. You saved my life.
No, thank you. I mean, it's not a one-way street there. You know, you've always been good to me, even in the beginning. You might have been a little punk yourself.
Oh, I was.
And I'm a pretty good judge of character. I'm not saying I'm the best, but I do a pretty good job at choosing the right people to be around me to help me be successful and to really just people that I know that'll have my back. And even to this day, like, if I ever need anything, I wouldn't hesitate. I wouldn't hesitate to contact you ever. So that just shows a lot about who you are and the relationship that you and I have. And it's been a good run, and we'll continue.
Yeah,
it's
we're not done
great,
yet.
So
Ryan, give your wife my best. Thank you so much for your time.
hey, thanks.
All right, buddy.